Korean Muism to complete deep dive. The female shamanic tradition, Mudang, got the 5,000 spirits, and the oldest living shamanic tradition in East Asia. The Mudang does not journey to the spirits. The spirits come to her. In full possession, she dances, weeps, laughs, and rages with the voice of the dead and the divine simultaneously. Sinbyeong, the spirit sickness, is not disease. It is the spirit's claim on a life they have chosen. The calling cannot be refused without consequences. Korean Muism is 4,000 years old and currently in full revival. Contents. Introduction, the oldest East Asian shamanic tradition. Part 1, who the Mudang are, identity, demographics, and contemporary presence. Part 2, Sinbyeong, the spirit sickness as sacred calling. Part 3, Nerimsut, the initiation ceremony, step by step. Part 4, the Mudang spirit mother and lineage. Part 5, the Mudang's costume, spirit wardrobe. Part 6, the Mudang's instruments, sound as sacred technology. Part 7, the 5,000 spirits, the Korean spirit world. Part 8, the 3 major spirit categories. Part 9, the ancestor spirits, the most immediate sacred relationship. Part 10, the general spirits, martial divine power. Part 11, the mountain god and nature spirits. Part 12, Yelik, the Korean shamanic ceremony, overview. Part 13, the structure of a full god, all 12 segments. Part 14, the god step by step. Part 15, Jenoji god, the death ceremony for the departed. Part 16, the Jenoji god, complete step by step. Part 17, Bayongsi god, healing ceremony. Part 18, Jisilk god, blessing ceremony for the living. Part 19, divination, the Mudang as oracle. Part 20, soul retrieval in Muism, hology. Part 21, the Muism revival, contemporary Korea. Part 22, Muism and the Korean cultural identity. Part 23, regional variations, seals as regional traditions. Part 24, the Haligrisity lens, possession, ancestor, and living altar. Introduction. Korean Muism is one of the oldest continuous shamanic traditions on earth, a living, fully active sacred system practiced by tens of thousands of Mudang throughout contemporary South Korea and maintained in diaspora communities globally. At approximately 4,000 years old based on archaeological evidence, Muism predates Buddhism's arrival in Korea more than 3,000 years. Survived sustained suppression by both Confucian Joseon-era governance and 20th century modernization, and is currently experiencing one of the most significant revivals of any indigenous sacred tradition in East Asia, with younger Koreans actively seeking out Mudang, attending god ceremonies, and in increasing numbers answering Sinbyeong themselves. What makes Muism distinctive within the world's shamanic traditions is its possession model. Where the Siberian shaman primarily journeys, their spirit travels to other realms to retrieve what is needed. The Korean Mudang primarily receives. The spirits come into her body. She becomes the vehicle through which the 5,000 spirits speak, weep, rage, and offer guidance to the gathered community. This possession model is more similar to the African diasporic traditions than to the Siberian traditions that the English word shamanism was originally coined to describe. And understanding this distinction is essential to understanding what actually happens in god ceremony. Who the Mudang are identity, demographics, and contemporary presence. The Mudang is the Korean female shaman, the primary ritual specialist of Muism. The word Mudang is the most common term. Regional variations include Manshin in Seoul and Tangol in certain southern regions. While male shamans exist, they have historically been a minority. Korean Muism is overwhelmingly female tradition, which stands in significant contrast to most Siberian shamanic traditions where gender distribution is more equal. TV Mudang is contemporary Korea. Numbers, estimates suggest between 100,000 and 300,000 practicing Mudang in South Korea today, one of the highest concentrations of shamanic practitioners per capita of any nation in the world. These numbers have been growing, not shrinking, since the 1,900 at 70. Urban presence. Korean Muism is not a rural folk tradition that survived in isolated villages. It is actively practiced in Seoul, Busan, Daegu, and every major Korean city. The Mudang shrine is a small business fixture in Korean cities, often found near markets or in residential areas. Urban Koreans consult Mudang for business decisions, health concerns, relationship guidance, and the welfare of deceased family members. The revival, beginning in the 1,980 and accelerating through the 1,980 and 2,000, Korean Muism has experienced documented revival. Academic interest, cultural recognition, and a broader Korean cultural reclamation movement have all contributed. The EBS documentary series on Mudang reached millions of viewers. UNESCO recognition, the Ganggang Sula, the Namsadang Nori, and specific regional gut traditions have received UNESCO recognition as intangible cultural heritage. Sinbyeong, the spirit sickness as sacred calling. Sinbyeong is the defining experience of the Mudang calling, a specific complex of physical, psychological, and spiritual symptoms that begins manifesting in the person the spirits have chosen, typically in their dalawampud or tatlumpud, and that cannot be resolved through any means other than accepting the calling and undergoing initiation. It is simultaneously the spirit's demand for its specific human vessel and the human being's most intense and most disorienting encounter with the sacred. Eve Sinbyeong complex, complete symptom as physical symptoms, chronic illness that does not respond to medical treatment, often severe enough to be incapacitating. Inexplicable physical pain in specific parts of the body. Extreme sensitivity to certain foods, environments, or sensory stimuli. Dramatic weight loss. In some documented cases, temporary paralysis or inability to speak. Psychological sensory symptoms, visual phenomena, seeing spirits, seeing lights or colors not visible to others, seeing the recently dead as if still alive. Auditory phenomena, hearing voices, music, or specific spirit communications. Dissociative states, periods when the person is not present in the ordinary sense. Dreams of specific spirits, specific ancestors, or specific sacred landscapes. Compulsive behaviors that the person cannot explain rationally. Social symptoms, withdrawal from ordinary social life. Inability to maintain ordinary work or relationships. Behavior that others find alarming or inexplicable. In severe cases, the person may be institutionalized before Senior Mudang recognizes the Sinbyeong for what it is. Recognition. Senior Mudang, when consulted about the person's condition, recognizes Sinbyeong through divination and through direct recognition of the spirit signatures in the person's behavior and symptoms. The recognition is the beginning of the resolution. The naming of Sinbyeong as the cause immediately changes the frame from pathology to sacred calling. What happens if calling Beth refused? Korean tradition is consistent and explicit. Refusing Sinbyeong does not make it go away. The symptoms intensify. The person's health continues to deteriorate. Family members may begin to suffer consequences. The spirits are not punishing the person for refusing. They are simply maintaining their presence in someone who belongs to them. The only resolution is acceptance. Nerimsot, the initiation ceremony, step by step. Nerimsot is the initiation ceremony through which the Sinbyeong calling is formally accepted. The specific spirits who will become the Mudang's primary working spirits descend into and claim her body for the first time. And she is formally recognized inside the community as a Mudang. It is one of the most intensive initiation ceremonies in any shamanic tradition. Nerimsot, complete step by step. Preparation, the candidate undergoes extended fasting and purification. Reducing food, avoiding meat, abstaining from sexual activity, and maintaining a state of heightened spiritual sensitivity. The spirit mother performs divination to identify which specific spirits are claiming the candidate and what their specific demands and gifts will be. Specific offerings are assembled for each of the candidate's primary spirits, particular foods, specific colors of cloth, specific sacred objects. Family members and community gather. Nerimsut is a communal ceremony, not private one. EV ceremony, Yoafi. Step isa, opening EV space. The spirit mother performs the opening sequences of the gut, calling the major categories of spirits to witness and support the initiation. Sacred music begins, the jangu drum, the gong, the bok. Step dalawa, Jeeves candidate's dressing. The candidate is dressed in the ceremonial costume of the primary spirit who is claiming her. The specific colors and forms of the costume are the spirit's signature. Step tatlo, TV first possession. The spirit mother performs the specific sequences that invite the candidate's primary spirit to descend. The candidate experiences the first full possession. The spirit enters completely, and the candidate begins to speak, move, and act as the spirit. This first possession is typically dramatic, weeping, speaking in different voice, making specific demands or declarations. Step apat, TV spirit speaks. During possession, the primary spirit identifies itself, declares its relationship with the new Mudang, states its specific demands, and gives initial guidance to the assembled family. Step 5. Multiple possessions. 1 give 1. Through costume changes and specific musical sequences, each of the candidate's primary spirits descends and is introduced. A full Nerim suit may involve isa zero tandang bawas 15 distinct spirit possessions. AV ceremony, Yohai Tigi Des Beyond, Step Anim, TV standing a teeth blade. One of the most dramatic elements of Nerimsut, the new Mudang, possessed a martial spirit, stands barefoot on the flat edge of two ritual knives. This act, performed in possession, demonstrates the protection of the spirits. The blades do not cut. The new Mudang stands without injury. Step Pito, Thieves Community Consultation. The assembled family receives specific guidance from the spirits through the newly initiated Mudang. Questions about health, the welfare of deceased family members, business decisions, and relationship concerns. Step Walo, Thieves Closing Feast. The ceremony closes with the communal consumption of the food offerings that have been consecrated throughout the ceremony. The spirits have eaten their portion through the ritual. The community now shares in the sacred meal. Step Sham, Vid Ziwid name. The new Mudang receives her working name, sometimes the name of her primary spirit, sometimes a name given Yithai the spirit mother. This name is used in all ceremonial contexts going forward. Step Isasero, the formal relationship. The new Mudang formally accepts the spirit mother as her teacher and enters into the specific lineage relationship that will guide her development. The 5,000 spirits, the Korean sacred universe. The Korean shamanic spirit world is described as containing 5,000 spirits. Figure that is not literal but expresses the vast, comprehensive, and highly specific nature of the spirit world that Muism recognizes. Every category of human experience, every dimension of the natural world, every type of historical figure who died a significant death, all have their corresponding spirit beings who can be invoked, consulted, and propitiated through ceremony. The major spirit categories. The ancestor spirits, the spirits of deceased family members, the most immediately present and most regularly consulted category of spirits in Korean Muism. Unlike traditions that understand ancestors as having departed to a distant realm, Korean Muism holds that ancestors remain in close proximity to the living family, interested in family affairs, capable of causing problems when their needs are not met, and available for specific guidance when properly invoked. The regular offering of food, the burning of incense, and the conducting of God ceremonies maintains the ancestor relationship. T.S. divine generals, spirits of historical military figures and divine warriors, often specific historical generals whose extraordinary lives gave them extraordinary post-death power. The most prominent is Choyang, a 14th century Goryeo general famous for his integrity and his violent death, who is one of the most widely worshipped general spirits in contemporary Muism. General spirits govern protection, the resolution of conflicts, and the community's defense against harmful forces. Ta Mountain Easy, the spirit of the mountain, one of the most ancient and most universally recognized sacred beings in Korean tradition. Every significant mountain in Korea has its own Sansin, depicted as a white-haired elder accompanied by a tiger. Sansin governs fertility, health, longevity, and the protection of the community. Mountain shrines are found throughout Korea. As birth goddess, the divine grandmother who presides over birth, children's health, and fertility. One of the most universally propitiated spirits in Korean household religion, offerings to Samsin Halmyuni were made in virtually every Korean home at child's birth. He is Dragon King, the deity of the sea, of rivers, and of water, particularly important in coastal fishing communities. Seagoing rituals invoke Yongwang for the safety of fishermen and the abundance of the catch. Gut. The Korean shamanic ceremony, overview and structure. Gut is the overarching term for the Korean shamanic ceremony, the ritual event in which a Mudang performs the specific sequences of dance, song, possession, prayer, and community interaction that constitute Korean shamanic practice. A full gut is one of the most theatrically elaborate, most physically demanding, and most communally integrated sacred ceremonies in any tradition. What gut does? Gut is not simply a religious ceremony in the Western sense of a gathering for collective prayer or worship. It is a specific sacred technology for accomplishing specific ends, communicating with specific spirits on behalf of the assembled community, resolving the complaints of ancestor spirits whose needs have not been met, healing illness that has a spiritual component, releasing the souls of the recently dead who have not yet made the full transition to the spirit world, attracting abundance and protection for household or business, and marking significant life transitions with appropriate sacred ceremony. These 12 segments are a full gut. A full gut follows a specific sequence of segments, each dedicated to a specific category of spirit. A complete gut may have 12 or more segments and can last 12 tandang bawas 24 hours. Gori Isa, Sinbyeong Gori, the purification opening, cleansing the ceremonial space and the participants, removing harmful energies, establishing the sacred container for what follows. Gori Dalawa, Gamang Gori, invoking the heavenly generals, the powerful martial spirits who protect the ceremony and ensure that only appropriate spirits enter the space. Gori Tatlo, Holgu Gori, the small gods, household deities and minor protective spirits who govern the specific domestic space in which the god is being held. Gori Apat, Daisin Gori, the great spirit sequence, invoking the highest tier of the divine hierarchy, including the creation grandmother who made the world. Gori Lima, Bolsim Gori, the Buddhist spirits. In the specific Korean synthesis, Buddhist figures are incorporated into the Muism spirit world and receive their segment of the ceremony. Gori Anim, Sansin Gori, the mountain god sequence. The Sansin of the specific region descends, is welcomed, and speaks. Gori Pito, Jangan Gori, the general spirits, typically the most dramatic segment, with the Mudang possessed Bisay martial spirits, dressed in red and blue ceremonial military costume, dancing with swords or flags, and delivering specific guidance from the powerful generals. Gori Walo, Chembu Gori, the entertaining sequence, lighter spirits who bring humor, songs, and sometimes ribald commentary. This segment intentionally breaks the ceremony's intense energy and releases communal tension. Gori Sham, Josang Gori, the ancestor segment, the most personally significant for the commissioning family. The Mudang becomes possessed by the specific deceased family members who need to speak, who may weep, apologize, offer guidance, or make specific requests. Gori Isa Sero, Chioksal Gori, the casting out, expelling harmful spirits, releasing spiritual blockages, and removing any negative energies that have been identified during the ceremony. Gori Lebing Isa, Duichan Gori, the rear gate spirits, the final protective sequence, sealing the ceremonial space and ensuring that what was opened during the gut is properly closed. Gori Labindalawa, Sonim Gori, sending off, formally releasing all the spirits who were invited, with specific thanks and specific farewell offerings, and returning the space to ordinary time. Jinoji Gat, the death ceremony for the departed, complete step by step. Jinoji Gat is the most important Gat for dealing with death. A full shamanic ceremony conducted to help the recently deceased complete their transition to the spirit world, to address any unresolved business the deceased had with the living, and to provide comfort and closure for the grieving family. It is the most emotionally intense and most practically important Gat in the Muism repertoire. Jinogi Gilik, complete step by step. Preparation, the family contacts the Mudang within days or weeks of the death, particularly if the death was sudden, violent, premature, or accompanied by unresolved family conflict. The Mudang performs preliminary divination to assess the deceased's condition in the spirit world, whether they are confused, in distress, or have specific unresolved needs. The family assembles the specific offerings, the deceased's favorite foods, specific symbolic objects, paper money, white rice and rice wine, and a specific set of paper objects representing earthly goods the deceased can use in the spirit world. EV ceremony, step isa, opening the invitation. The Mudang opens the sacred space with purification sequences and invites the protective spirits to witness. She then specifically calls the deceased give name, dia relationship, dia specific physical description, addressing them directly as a present being, not as a memory. Step dalawa, the first contact, the Mudang begins to receive the deceased's presence. This is often accompanied by a visible emotional response in the Mudang. Tears, specific gestures that family members recognize as characteristic of the deceased, use of phrases or terms of address that only the deceased would have used. Step tatlo, Tia's deceased speaks. In full possession, the deceased speaks through the Mudang to the assembled family, expressing whatever remained unsaid at death, apologies, expressions of love, specific concerns about surviving family members, instructions about specific objects or wishes. Family members present may ask questions, receive answers, and have conversations they could not have at death. Step apat, Tiv unresolved. The Mudang names any unresolved matters, relationships that need healing, wrongs that need acknowledging, specific requests for how the family should proceed. The family responds and commits to specific actions where appropriate. Step lima, Tiv Spirit Road Ceremony. The Mudang performs the sequence of Bari Gongju, the princess who was abandoned and who traversed the underworld to bring healing water to her dying parents. This narrative is performed as a specific ceremony for guiding the deceased soul through the stages of the spirit road. The Mudang dances the specific stages of the journey, the obstacles encountered, the helpers met, and the final arrival at the destination. Step Anim, Thieves Crossing. The Mudang holds a white cloth that represents the spirit road. Family members each hold a portion. The cloth is slowly moved and then released, the physical enactment of the soul's final release and crossing. Step Pito, TV burning, paper offerings, money, clothes, food representations, are burned in a specific fire, transferring them to the spirit world for the deceased's use. Step Walo, TV farewell. The deceased speaks a final farewell through the Mudang, often the most emotionally devastating moment of the ceremony, when family members receive the direct expression of the deceased's love and permission to grieve fully and then continue living. Step Sham, Teeth release. The Mudang formally releases the deceased spirit, naming their full name, their relationship, their destination, and the community's love and blessing as they depart. Step Isasero, Teeth feast. The ceremony closes with communal eating. The food that was offered is now shared by the living, an act of continued communion with the departed and affirmation of the living community's continuity. The Haligricity lends possession, ancestor, and the living altar. Korean Muism offers Haligricity, the most operationally precise available model of what the living altar practice is aiming toward. It's daily, specific, practical relationship with named ancestor spirits that is not metaphorical, not merely commemorative, but genuinely interactive. The Josanggori segment of the god, when the Mudang becomes the deceased family member and speaks directly to the assembled living family, is the most complete available demonstration of what the Haligric ancestor relationship looks like when it is fully operational. The possession model and the tetrality. The Korean possession model, in which the spirit enters the Mudang's body and speaks, weeps, and acts through her physical vehicle, is the most complete available demonstration of what the tetrality means when all four dimensions are fully engaged simultaneously. The Mudang in possession is feeling at the fullest possible depth, speaking with a voice that is not entirely her own, thinking with intelligence that includes both her knowledge and the spirit's, and doing with movements that are choreographed by a consciousness other than the ordinary ego. The Haligric practitioner who understands the Korean possession model understands what full alignment actually looks and feels like, not as theory but as witnessed practice. The Mudang does not perform grief. She becomes the grief of the mother who died before she could say what needed to be said. The family weeps not because the ceremony is moving but because their mother is actually present, using their language, knowing their names, asking about the grandchildren she never met. This is what the living altar is building toward, a relationship with the ancestor that is specific enough, consistent enough, and honored enough that when the ancestor speaks, through whatever medium, the living person recognizes the voice. Grand Rising. The spirits chose her before she was born. Sinbyeong is not the illness, it is the summons. The ceremony is not theater, it is contact. Korean Muism and the Mudang calling. 4,000 years old. Predominantly female. Currently in full revival in one of Asia's most technologically advanced societies. The urban Korean who consults a Mudang for a business decision and the rural Korean grandmother who maintained the Josang shrine above the front door are practicing the same essential technology, acknowledgement that the dead remain present, that the spirit world has specific knowledge the living world needs, and that the relationship between the two requires specific ceremony to remain functional. Grand Rising. Personal Reading Series Haligricity, Jilgi Productions, June 2026.